Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today it's actually some pretty damn rough news. We've been tracking the number of job layoffs that there have been in the games industry throughout the last year, and, well, this year's count has just increased massively by 1,900 because Microsoft have axed 1,900 positions across Xbox, Zenimax, and Activision Blizzard King. We've also got a game cancellation, Mike Ybarra leaving as president of Blizzard, which actually goes directly, even though it's being framed as voluntary, it goes directly against something that he said fairly recently. And another just rough wrinkle to this is this announcement happened while loads of their Pacific Coast staff, so the people in California at, say, Blizzard, well, when they were still asleep or just getting up in the morning, like 7 a.m. And even now, a little bit of time after this broke, as I'm recording this, I am seeing like staff that I know at these companies posting that they still don't know if they're impacted yet. There were quite a lot of criticisms with Riot's recent layoffs where they, I think, had rolling updates over an hour as people would find out. This does appear to be a pretty damn worse implementation. Of course, my job here is to communicate to you what's going on, why it's likely going on, and what the impact to you in the industry is going to be. So, in service of that, let's just get into today's story. Now, this comes 1 week after the Xbox Developer Direct. That was basically showing off like the future of Xbox titles. So it is rough that now we hear this. And rather suspiciously, well, there is going to be a quarterly earnings report for us to talk about as well. This story broke because The Verge received an internal memo from Phil Spencer to the games division. This was at 7 a.m. California time. And overall, he said this: "Together, we've set priorities, identified areas of overlap, and ensured that we're all aligned on the best opportunities for growth." And yes, that means the 1,900 out of 22,000 people are being laid off. And that actually is not that this is a competition, but sometimes these companies are almost treating it that way. This is more than Unity. We're the former number one of this year's count with 1,800 staff going. Layoff Watch 2024 is honestly pretty damn depressing. We've now got 5,900 cuts thus far in 2024. January hasn't even finished yet. And we've already reached 60% of last year's total. So if you thought last year was bad, I mean, this year is honestly trending to be so much worse. Another side to this is, well, this is what was announced, what Mike Ybarra said, basically that he's chosen to leave the company and a new president will be appointed next week for Blizzard Entertainment. Additionally, Blizzard's chief design officer, Alan Adam, is also going to leave. This was part of a post where Matt Booty, who is their president of studios, talked about just his influence, how he'll be felt for years to come. Now, it is interesting with Alan, he was a co-founder of Blizzard way back in the day. He left and then he came back. And when he came back, he was essentially leading an internal incubation division. The context here is Blizzard saw that Hearthstone did really well, even though it didn't have a massive development team. Of course, this is in the era where Project Titan has exploded in their face. They see something like Hearthstone do well, and then Blizzard essentially decided, okay, let's try to incubate more projects like this. Now, there is, of course, Diablo Immortal. I don't actually know if that's part of that incubation program because it was a co-development with NetEase, but as an example, Warcraft Rumble would have been one of the outputs of that incubation division. Obviously, though, that was all years and years and years ago, and not really that much came out of the incubation division that we ever found out about. So there's that. And then there's also the survival game. So their unannounced survival game has, well, I don't want to say unannounced, but it has been cancelled. Basically, people are moving on to early development on other projects from Blizzard Entertainment. The context here is Dan Hay, who led Far Cry 3, and then produced the rest of that series through to 6. He had came on board to the survival project to essentially steer it in 2022. We don't know if he's going to be out. Context that I had heard is that this project had been in development hell. I've actually had numerous people be kind of confused that it hadn't been cancelled. I have to imagine that whenever they did that sort of announcement of the unannounced game, that, you know, at BlizzCon, that they were, I suppose, trying to like rally that team, get some staff on the project, drum up a bit of interest, whatever, that just does not seem to have paid off. And very broadly speaking in the industry, we are seeing companies look at medium risk or high risk projects that will be paying off in the longer term, and they're essentially pulling their chips out of that and they're putting their chips onto safer bets. From the context that I have right now, what a lot of the Warcraft leadership team has said publicly, they're trying to transition that franchise to be more than just World of Warcraft. That was some of the initial framing of Chris Metzen's return to Blizzard. Of course, now he's very heavily involved doing creative direction for the next number of Warcraft MMO expansions. But just between the lines, I do expect them to be doing more things within that IP. When, of course, we think about a lot of other big companies, what are we seeing? We are seeing sticking with safe IP, not making those big bets. So there's that with the survival game, which was codenamed Odyssey. Jason Schreier said that people at the companies, as of like right now, do not know if they are losing their jobs or not. That does match everything that I have seen. Now that you understand that, let's have a talk about the actual memo itself. So look, I'm just going to read it. We're going to break it down together and analyze it. In a way, this is something that would have been fairly expected, but I think there is going to be a pretty real cost to some of these games, because even though you can see, oh, you know, there's overlap in these Venn diagrams of what our teams do, that is completely disregarding a lot of specific on-the-job IP, franchise-based and community-based experience that people will have. So let's just go. It has been a little over 3 months since the Activision Blizzard and King teams joined Microsoft. As we move into 2024, the leadership of Microsoft Gaming and Activision Blizzard is committed to aligning a strategy and an execution plan with a sustainable cost structure that will support the whole of our growing business. And they say they have set priorities, identified areas of overlap, and ensured they're all aligned for the best opportunities for growth, and that does mean 1,900 people are going. And to be honest, going through the rest of the memo, it's kind of just like fluffy words. Basically, the point here is consolidation. So what happens when you actually merge different companies together? Think about like development. Now, development, franchise, IP, if you're Microsoft, that's what you're actually looking for. You're looking for game development teams, you're looking to acquire intellectual property, and in the likes of, say, King, you're looking to acquire expertise that you do not currently possess. What are you not looking to acquire? Well, maybe a publishing wing, maybe some operational roles. Of course, loads of corporate roles, because if you've got Activision Blizzard, you've got King, you've got Zenimax, and then imagine each one of those structures has its own publishing team, commercial team, this team, that team. If you're Microsoft, you're thinking, well, we have all of these duplicated roles across our organization. These don't make sense, so we are going to consolidate them. What this essentially is, right, is you're acquiring an asset, and then you're basically finding all the bits of that asset that you don't want, and then you remove them. So thinking about what the last 3 months likely will have involved, as much as we saw the likes of the campus visits from Phil Spencer, well, on the corporate level, what they're trying to do is minimize the bits they don't want, focus on the bits they do want, which is the development and which is the IP. And essentially what we're left with here is a situation where when you think about sort of the market, this, you know, almost sort of disembodied thing that we may talk about, the overall function of the market is to try to, I suppose, find efficiency and price it accurately, you know? Broadly speaking, that's what it does. That's why if somebody has money in the S&P 500, it just, you know, notches up a little bit. The problem, though, is a lot of that can be quite conservative. It can be quite based on the next 3 months, or the next 6 months, the next year, but not really the next 5 years. And one of the reasons there is because the investors, you know, people putting their money into the market, what they're always going to be doing is thinking about, well, okay, I get that you have a really nice 5-year plan, but actually these people over here are doing better now, so I'm going to put my money over there. And that's essentially one of the things that just keeps on pulling us back to focusing about the immediate. And that's something that's worth bringing up because this is totally like happening now, partially in the way that it is sort of being announced, for investors, because the quarterly earnings call for Microsoft is really soon. Of course, announcing the Q4 results that may have some spicy numbers in them. And of course, we're in a time where Microsoft stock just overtook Apple, making Microsoft the most valuable company on earth. And so that's one of the challenging things. You have this consistent process of trimming the fat, trimming the fat, trimming the fat, always looking to optimize this and optimize that. And in a way, you can understand that. However, sometimes I think there's a degree of losing the forest for the trees. You know, these are not perhaps always optimal for your 5-year health, things like that, and also some of the things that are intangible within a business, such as culture, such as aspects of bespoke experience. Because yes, while there may be overlap between corporate divisions, between publishing, between marketing, between community management, yeah, those are role overlaps, but we must ask ourselves, are they experience overlaps? Is a community manager for Microsoft going to be able to come over and work in World of Warcraft and just immediately do a great job? Probably not, because the people who have been doing that on World of Warcraft are experienced doing that for World of Warcraft, with all the unique needs of its community, all the unique quirks or whatever its development team. That is the thing that I think gets lost here. Now, I do have more analysis in this sort of thing, but I want to talk about Mike Ybarra's tweet, because it honestly is quite strange. So he says he thanks everybody for their, the meaningful impacts, says that there's any way you can help, connections, recommendations, DM me, which, I mean, hey, if that's real and he's actually going to try and help people in that personal capacity, obviously that's the sort of thing that I'd support. He does go on to say, though, that this is his last day at Blizzard. He talks about how it's, been a great time. He wants to be a fan from the outside. This is certainly an interesting one. You may look at this and think, he's informed us it's his last day. The thing then is, I saw a memo from Matt Booty, and this memo from Matt Booty said that Mike Ybarra has decided to leave. But this is where things get a little bit interesting. And credit to Jason Schreier for remembering this from the BlizzCon opening ceremony. Well, Mike Ybarra said that he wants to say for the long haul, quote, "Someone will drag me out of Blizzard. That's how long I will be here." Is that a man who thought this was November, the start of November, right? Did he think in 2 and a bit months that he would be gone when he just said, someone will have to drag me out of the building, basically? Yeah, he hasn't literally been dragged out of the building, but something has changed. Either what his role would be just changed in a way that he's no longer okay with it, or he has actually been ousted. We have absolutely no idea, but that's essentially what's going on. Now, per The Verge's sources, this is primarily Activision Blizzard, but some people at Xbox and Zenimax are impacted. I actually saw a Zenimax person reveal that they have had their job be cut just before I recorded. We don't really have the full scope of this, and that's why I do intend to do a video on this maybe tomorrow. Maybe we'll publish it on Saturday. I just want to get more facts straight before we really dive into that. Obviously, they are Xbox. They've had Zenimax for a while. They will have had every opportunity via more quiet means to reduce headcounts within those organizations. So yeah, it does look like a lot of this is Activision Blizzard, and that makes complete sense because that's the thing that they just bought. And to be very clear, something like this was always coming, right? There's just no way that a big company like that doesn't gobble up another big company for $69 billion and then just doesn't try to optimize the new asset that they've gained. The thing is, though, well, the asset that you're optimizing is partially based and, built by and comprised of people. So some of those people are being cut. I think what is maybe surprising to people here is the scale. Yes, it's a large organization, 22,000 is their headcount, but you know what, 8% of that is a lot of people. That is, I think, overtly just shocking as soon as you see it. Ultimately, of course, the genesis of all of this, it is Bobby Kotick. It is everything that kicked off years ago, because if you'll remember, the stuff from the, at the time, Californian Department of, it was the DFEH, that essentially weakened sort of like the position of the board, it seemed, to the point where they were kind of vulnerable to this offer. So essentially, whenever they were in pretty significant trouble, I think Microsoft, who were already wanting to acquire things, thought, oh, one of the big third-party publishers is vulnerable. They're at a point of weakness. Let's give them a deal that they can't refuse. Because, of course, yeah, Bobby Kotick's gone, but he got a golden parachute. The people who are gone now, likely not having a golden parachute. I mean, at least with Riot, we saw, I believe per Schreier's read in the situation anyway, essentially industry-leading levels of severance. We do not know what those packages are going to be here. But of course, the point here is Bobby, he gets to leave with a massive golden parachute, to the value of hundreds of millions of dollars. This is not a small golden parachute. This is you can buy a small fleet of jets if you sell all those stocks, tier of golden parachute, right? It's almost a golden helicarrier. The people are not going to get that, and that's the way that is, which is awful. What is also, I think, rather interesting here, this is in and around a 10% layoff. I think it's more like 8, but that is the theme we're seeing. Look at Sony. you're dealing with like 10% across the board. That's just what seems to be going on. Now, the other bit of context here is Microsoft's second quarter financial results are due to be published on Tuesday, the 30th of January. Now, this is when, of course, they would be reckoning with the impact of the big old Activision Blizzard King purchase. So this essentially leaves Microsoft being able to promote their forethought in dealing with that impact ahead of showing the results to shareholders. And what do those investors think? Well, they're happy. 404, which is probably the error that some Activision Blizzard employees will get this morning when they try to log into a work portal. Okay, probably won't literally be a 404, but hey, you got the point. It's bloody grim. The thing that, I mean, I'm obviously extremely, I'm worried and concerned for all of these people. A lot of these roles are being lost across the industry, and that actually means, think about the job market. What's the job market based on? Supply and demand. So everyone's tightening their belt, and as a part of that, they're laying off loads of these staff. It's going to be way harder for these people to get jobs. I mean, even as an example, Josh Allen, he did WoW community stuff back in the day. Then he was WoW community manager. Then he went to like a few other companies. I think most recently he ended up at the studio who do the Dragon Prince stuff. And he sort of said like, right, I'm actually just going to go fully back into content creation because realistically, he sort of said, there are so many layoffs. Like, you're just left, like, how the fuck am I going to get a job, essentially? So this is absolutely brutal because it's not like this is one thing in one company. This is in a wider context of massive layoffs. I mean, putting the years together, you're like at 15,000 plus. It's just going to be harder for these people to find a job. Like, money is drying up everywhere, even in like the indie scene from stuff that like I've seen. So this is an absolutely brutal situation. We are going to be monitoring this extremely closely. I'd recommend you check the channel tomorrow or maybe just over on Twitter. I'll let you know what our plans are. What I want to do is see if anybody reaches out, maybe just understand how this has actually happened, what sorts of teams are being impacted, and I'll do my best to essentially try to figure out what this is going to mean to you and kind of bring the broader sort of context and the deeper analysis into this, as of course right now this is currently a breaking news story. So that is the situation. Ultimately, I definitely want to thank my team for being able to just quickly get everything that we've been able to find so far. So we've been able to do this video. If you want to support our team, bellular.ghost.io is our own little platform. We're trying to just put our eggs in more baskets. As the person leading this shindig, I mean, like my #1 job right now is ensure this place is healthy and, job security is as high as it possibly can be because I know that things are bloody rough, whatever way you look. So down there, we do a bunch of exclusive content, early access to videos, we do loading screen, our daily publication, and we're, of course, going to be growing as time goes on. So there's that. I will see you back here tomorrow. If you're seeing this and you're at these companies, I mean, fuck, there's nothing I can say that's going to make this any better. I'm just sorry you're all being caught up in this. This is awful. Right. I will see you tomorrow. That's it for today.